president of this organization. I try to hide that fact so nobody comes after me. Anyway, I want to thank all you people for coming tonight to hear what Harry has to tell us. Hopefully a lot of good things. And it was a sort of a short notice type of situation. I got a phone call from Barbara Bell and a few other people, and it says, maybe we can have a little thing with Harry tonight. So I said, I don't see that be a problem with that. I think that's a great idea. People out here in Leilani definitely would like to hear what Harry has to say. And I'm sorry, Harry, Kim, if I'm calling you Harry, but as we all do out here, we all call you Harry. And we all know it's an affectionate Harry, too. And Barbara, do you have anything you'd like to say? And we'll move on from there.
No, actually, but I'll just thank everybody for coming as well. And you know, there's open seats up here. Okay, and actually, nice to see so many friendly faces. The names stay the same and the time marches on. Anyway, I would like to introduce our previous mayor and our previous civil defense director that you pretty much all know, Harry King.
Thank you. Today my step on, you will excuse it. First of all, thank you for coming. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. I told people, and I'm not telling you, this is a very important meeting to me, and I'll explain why. And it's simply, I got introduced to geothermal in the 80s as civil defense. And like most people except the professionals, totally ignorant of geothermal. And I was responsible because it was a family here in Leilani, against the 80s, early 80s. They asked me if I would come and join for dinner. And I told them, you know, I don't go out and eat dinner, socialize, but I woke up to the house for a meeting. So he said, come on over, told me about what time. And I came up here, and so I just want you to see and experience what we experience every night. And that was the smell of the geothermal plant. And that was my first real exposure to geothermal here. I used to pass here all the time, but like an average person, just pass going down and don't pay attention up here. You do deal with experimental geothermal plant by the university. That's about it. You know, exposing a lot of things to you in regards to the field to follow up is not easy, but you should know that. It was a total failure of us, whether it be geothermal or county responsibility or state responsibility. And can I ask if anyone lived here through the 80s? Okay, then you know what I'm talking about. Then the very next morning, they asked me if I could come early in the morning and to look at the geothermal steam going across the road. And then you have to read and read and read and talk to people about this thing called geothermal. This is, I'm used to tsunamis and hurricanes and earthquakes and those things and eruptions that I'm responsible for. Geothermal is not even in our book. It's not even in the state book as far as hazardous materials or man-caused disasters. And I saw these children running playing and running across the steam to catch the bus. I was told it was just plain steam. From there on the end, the misinformation, and I use all kinds of words, ladies and gentlemen, but it was all misinformation. All kind of misinformation of just plain steam, no nothing, this and that, no harm. And then you start to read again, because that's your job. Try to understand this very important point in regards to before we go on. In civil defense, we make a lot of mistakes. We're what? And I wanted to find out why. Why do we consistently have people dying, or get killed, or get isolated, injured, on the same phenomena that happens throughout the world? Whether it be earthquakes, whether it be tsunamis, or hurricanes, or anything else, or just plain floods or fires. And I boiled it down to, I think, 4 reasons. And anytime there was an emergency in the world, I make a factor analysis comparison. where along this line of our responsibility of government to protect you did we fail? And number one would always be a failure, and it doesn't matter about who, but the one in charge has to take the responsibility. The failure to understand the hazards and the failure to understand the risk of the phenomena. And the phenomena can be anything, right? Let it be tsunami or hurricane. Let's just take hurricane. To understand the hazard of the hurricane. When you're new to this job, everything is new. You don't know much about hurricanes except for far away. And you find out the hazards of what they call surge, hazards of wind, and hazards of rain. For a person like me, again, new to the job, I read and read every day from 4 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the morning for 4 straight months to just try to understand the hazard. How can I make an emergency response plan if I don't know what I'm planning for? And I don't know how many of you are experts, whatever the word means, in hurricanes. And it's a good example. But if I say the hazard surge, and you must plan for the hazard surge in all scenarios to the maximum scenario for the area of Puna. You know how difficult that one task is? And if I ask you, okay, after you understand the surge, you have to understand the risk per area. Then make an emergency plan for that. And this is just one. The second thing I find about failure of us is we fail to understand the warning system. The total how it works, all the words that they use, what it means, their margin of error, the whole works. And I'm going to pick on the surge again. If you were here, Hurricane Fecal was my first real exposure to hurricanes. And you'll see the connection to this too. So-called geothermal hazards in this. It's exactly the same. And you take a hurricane, and before I go on, as I told several people in this room, this is a very important need for me. This is determines where we go, not as women for living from there. I'm talking about this island, this state, and what we do with all the people in power of this thing they want to develop. When I testified in Honolulu a couple of months ago, I learned and I stated, I am here to support geothermal. And I should have studied that tonight. I am here to support geothermal. But it went on and stated to do it right. For what? For the protection of people, the protection of the environment. You put that out there because that's number one. And we got to go back to the example of Hurricane Surge. 1978, Hurricane Fecal. Huge hurricane. Approaching from the almost due east, heading due west. I see John shaking his head. John, you remember that? Huge hurricane. Category 5 approaching the island. First information, remember, satellite was not as good as it is today, but it was fairly good. And everything I tell you is documented so you can look it up. And I ask you to challenge anything I said tonight, anything, and see if it's right or wrong. Because as Barbara Brown knows it, Dixie Fayette, you know it, and anybody who worked for me, we have a code. Whatever you present to the public, you better make sure it's of absolute truth. Make believe you are presenting it to the U.S. Supreme Court. You have no control of the U.S. Supreme Court. Only thing you have control is the information you present. Talk to any person who worked for me that's cabinet member. That was their code of conduct. And my code obviously gets me. On Hurricane Fecal, 375 miles away, here comes Category 4-5 Hurricane Fecal. I'm looking at the map, plotting this, making plans what we're going to do, when we're going to start warning people, what the hazards are, or what you know, subsequent evacuation plans, where to, all the standard things. Then I get information, Puna, Kaimu is being inundated. I said, well, what the heck is this? Anybody was from Kaimur, California those days? You remember that? You were totally isolated because the highway was washed out. I failed a civil defense because I did not tell the people of Kaimur this is a possibility. Why? Because I didn't understand the hurricane hazard risk of surge. Not adequately, only by the book. I did not understand the limitations of the warning system. And the guy in charge at the time was Lee, General Lee. Everybody called General Lee because he was retired. And I blew my stacker out. I said, I failed the people of Kaimur because I didn't even give them an alert. Thank God only the roads got wiped out, but I got a whole community isolated. Why? I didn't understand the surge. I didn't understand the warning system. I didn't understand the margin of error per 18 different chapters. Everything was a learning experience. I had a book on one side, and I did go to classes in Florida, in Colorado, from experts trying to teach me, but still very limited in regards to what I learned. Because you know why? Simple. The best minds in the world did not know that this was going to happen. Why? Hurricane people, instead of moving in a direction, whether it be like this, or straight line, or whatever, no hurricane or straight line. They didn't put in the possibility of a hurricane remaining stationary. And that's what hurricane people did. But every time it's generated tremendous surge, moving where? Towards Hawaii Island. That is why, even though the hurricane people stayed and did not move towards Hawaii Island threat, the surf and surge that it generated 350 miles away from the eye destroyed Kaimur. We learned from experience. And what did I learn? Point number 2. You've got to learn the limitations of the warning system. I became a pain in their rear trying to ask questions. I still can remember them. Right, Harry, you know what they say. Our margin of error and 24-hour forecast for any location of a hurricane is approximately 100 miles. I said, you didn't tell me that. And they do it as you go. You know why? Because the experts don't want to tell you, don't want to tell me their weakness. They're going to go on the hurricanes going to threaten the Gulf, or hopefully not Hawaii. I want you to see if they tell you that. They will give you a general margin of error. And then you'll find out later through hardcore experience. What is the greatest error element? Intensity or location of the 24-hour period? I thought it was location, right? No, it's intensity. In other words, if they say sustained winds 80 miles per hour, the margin of error is greater than location, so it can be 25% up or down. Try it. Make that guy a projection error. Try to make a projection error of 100 miles difference in regards to location of the eye. I think you know the difference between South Point and Kohala, the Polo Point, is roughly 100 miles. So they tell me in 24 hours a hurricane may be at South Point. Where will it be 24 hours? Kohala. These are all limitations of the time. Today they're a little better. And that's point 2. Point 3, on any emergency, because that is our job, is a failure to develop adequate response plans. Adequate response plans means everything connected with a response plan. That means coordination with every agency that will have a part. That means the development and coordination of every agency's plan, whether it's for police, fire, anybody else, Department of Health. But there should be only one control response plan on that emergency. You're going to find very few agencies do that. And also the private sector, and the community sector. And I see people in here that I've worked with, whether it be resorts or individual community associations. And you find out the 4th element. the failure to develop post-disaster impact operations plan. And that's a doozy too. Because if you don't understand the hazard and risk, how are you going to plan adequately in regards to post-impact? I remember Kauai, because I was asked to go to Kauai after Hurricane Eva. And I asked the people in charge, the mayor, governor's rep, civil defense administrator, may I see your plan for debris removal and debris placement? They looked at me like, what? Is that our job? That within that, you got to have a plan for separation of hazmat. Because the federal government don't forgive you because if it's an emergency that you can throw hazardous materials in a landfill. You don't want them to do that anyway. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I will jump to what we're here for, the geothermal. And I know I'm dragging this out. But remember what I told you. I appeal to people in this room, they back off. Back off because we got to have one uniform group to work together to address the geothermal issue. It does not matter if you're for. It does not matter if you're against. It does not matter if you're neutral. It does not matter if you're in operations or you just moved here. Whatever side you take must be based on the total truth of the geothermal issue, not things you hear. I remember there was this senator, bless his soul, but he passed away. We're forming Hilo. And I always seem to find myself on the short end of a stick. I remember the irradiation issue. They asked me because that was my job, and I said, the irradiation plant should not be built in a tsunami evacuation zone. Next thing I know, hurricane against irradiation. And if you were here, you know that's true. I became almost the symbol of anti-irradiation flag. I said, how did this happen? It's in writing. I put down, you should not put an irradiation plant in a tsunami evacuation zone, because no matter what, you cannot protect it. Even if you make it 20 feet thick of cement and a tsunami comes and covers it, all the infrastructure is gone. So that area must be isolated for the length of the so-called radioactive material, which is average 150 years. Why do that, right? Move it. We just learned from Japan the foolishness of mankind to understand the forces of nature. I remember the second time. They sent me because of what EIS requirement. What is your position? Because that's your job. Read the EIS. And here came the spaceport thing. I read it. I don't know nothing about spaceports. So I called USGS and I said, can you help me out here? Can you read this and tell me about these earthquake zones, et cetera, et cetera? So some people are concerned. They came back to me and said, Harry, do you know where to put in the spaceport? I said, no, I don't know the Ka'u Desert. He said, right on the line of the greatest subsidence area in Ka'u. I said, no, we're not dead. He goes, yes, they are. Read it. I asked them to go to the council meeting to present that information, because when a doctor so-and-so says something versus Harry Kim, you know what carries the weight, right? Especially when they're scientists at USGS. But you know what's in the paper? Howard Kim is against a spaceport. And you go, how the shit did this happen again? And here we are on geothermal. But it's worse. It is worse because the powers that be has labeled a person who is doing his job, and I swear to God that's all I'm trying to do, and that's why this is important, of geothermal. Please base your position on the issue of geothermal. There was this senator, very highly respected, died not that long ago because of a bout of cancer. Very respectable person.